The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian, chapters 9 to 12. Susan and Peter and Edmund were really tired, and Lucy's head ached too. But finally, there came a time when they could finally sleep. Well, it seemed like Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Frumpkin could sleep very well, but Lucy was the opposite of that. She couldn't sleep at all, so she decided to get up and wander. She did get up, and she went close to the trees. "Oh, trees, trees, trees," said Lucy. "Oh, trees, wake. Don't you remember me? Dryads and Naiads and Hamadryads, come out to me." Well, of course, no one answered. Then suddenly, she began to feel a bit tired, so she snuggled down between Susan and Peter and was asleep. And it was really cold and cheerless waking for them all the next morning. And of course, breakfast was apples. Well, most of them didn't. I think that most of them didn't want to see an apple again. So that's the only choice. They had to eat it. Then they started their journey. On the way, they felt something sneaking up upon them. And in fact, it was a bear, and they killed it. And they decided to take some meat. The DLF shot it, and they took some of it. They had some quarrels while they were going down the rush. Then on their journey, Lucy said she saw Aslan, but no one else did. So they kept going on, and Lucy was really sad, and she was crying her eyes wet and bitterly. Well, it wasn't very easy keeping up of the edge of the gorge, but still it got easier, and they quite enjoyed it. They started to enjoy even Lucy. But just then, it was like a sound of a woodpecker. And it was an arrow. And it turned out to be there was an outpost of Miraz out there. Well, they got past the arrow, and after that, something else, and they had a long night's sleep. And of course, Lucy fell asleep this time, but she heard some kind of voice. It was her favorite, and she first thought it was her father's. Then, no, she didn't feel it was the exact voice. Then she thought it was Peter's voice. It wasn't. Of course not Edmund's. And to find it, she moved through the trees, and the trees were dancing. Then she saw someone that she always longed to see. It was Aslan. So she met him, and he told her to bring the others quickly. There isn't a moment to lose. Well, indeed she succeeded, but it wasn't really comfortable because the others couldn't see him. But Edmund, who believed Lucy the most, could see Aslan the first. After Lucy, then Peter, then Susan, which was the worst, and the dwarf, of course. So when they all saw him, when they all could see him, lifted his head, shook his mane, and roared. The roar first sounded like some organ beginning on a low note, then it got louder and it rose. So down in Miraz's camp, men woke and stared palely in one another's faces and grasped their weapons. The nymphs and the head of the river god rose from the water. things were coming back to life. So the things that got alive, they crowded and danced around the Aslan, and it grew so thick and rapid that Lucy was kind of confused. So as I said, they danced and danced, and they all felt joyful. But just then, Lucy remembered something and whispered to Susan, "I say, Sue, I think I know who they are." "Who are they?" "The boy with the wild face is Bacchus, and the old one on the donkey is Silenus. Don't you remember Mr. Timnis telling about them long ago?" "Yes, of course. But I say, Lucy." "What?" "I wouldn't have felt safe with Bacchus and all his wild girls if we'd met them without Aslan." "I think not," said Lucy. Okay, so these are the exact things that they said. I actually read this. So, meanwhile, Trumpkin and the two boys got to where Prince Caspian was. So when they got where Prince Caspian was, they heard some noises of fighting. So Trumpkin thought they should listen for a moment. "You know well enough," the voice, and it was Prince Caspian's. "Why the horn wasn't blown at sunrise this morning. Have you forgotten that mirrors fell upon us almost before Trumpkin had gone, and we were fighting for our lives for the space of 3 hours and more? I blew it when first I had a breathing space." "I'm not likely to forget it," came the angry voice. "When my dwarfs bore the brunt of the attack, and 1 in 5 of them fell." That was Nickelback. "For shame, dwarf," came a thick voice. It was Truffle Hunters. "We all did as much as the dwarfs and none more than the king." So these are the first 3 sentences that I said. The exact ones. So the hag and Nickelback and the werewolf were at Nickelback's side, and Dr. Cornelius and Prince Caspian and Truffle Hunter were in Prince Caspian's side. Nickelback said the ridiculous idea. He said to call the White Witch. They fought and they fought and they fought. Then finally, their enemies were all dead. The good side enemy. So there was the hag dead, and Nickelback dead too, and a werewolf. So they breakfasted and introduced themselves. Okay, so this is the end of the Chronicles of Narnia, chapters 9 to 12. Okay, so thank you for listening. Bye.